Blueprint is the health and longevity company started by Brian Johnson. They mostly sell supplements, but also things like olive oil, honey, powders, and meal replacements. They're notable for their high level of transparency, providing recent third-party certificates of analysis for each product that disclose both the levels of contaminants and usually the amounts of ingredients. They recently launched a shampoo and hair serum designed to help scalp and hair health and growth. I wanted to explore the evidence behind them and thought you might too. This article isn't about hair loss in general, but before we get to the product review, it's worth briefly addressing how scalp and hair relate to overall health. A 2014 analysis of a randomized trial involving 39,000 men found that, quote, baldness at age 45 years was significantly associated with an increased risk of aggressive prostate cancer compared with no baldness, end quote. This has been replicated in other research, including in a systematic review and meta-analysis of 7 case control studies. There is an established link between vertex top-of-head baldness and coronary artery disease, atherosclerosis, as shown by a meta-analysis of 856 studies involving 37,000 participants, even in young people. In fact, a 2017 study found that baldness and premature graying are the strongest predictors of early heart disease, even ahead of obesity. This suggests a common mechanism behind these diseases and scalp and hair health. It does not suggest that using any topical products would improve risks for those diseases, but it does show that premature baldness and graying are not purely cosmetic. Hair protects the head from UV radiation, and having skin that is able to recover from wounds becomes increasingly important as we age, which is relevant because some of the ingredients in these products may improve wound healing. I've seen a lot of news about peptides recently in the health and longevity space, to the point of it becoming like a buzzword. Peptides are basically small, simple proteins. As the Encyclopedia Britannica explains in its article, what is the difference between a peptide and a protein? They say, the basic distinguishing factors are size and structure. Peptides are smaller than proteins. In addition, peptides tend to be less well-defined in structure than proteins. Peptides occur naturally in our bodies, and they can also be hormones. Insulin and oxytocin are peptides. They can also be pharmaceuticals, with 5 peptides gaining FDA approval as drugs in 2023. Over the course of researching for this review, it became clear to me that there is a nearly overwhelming amount of research on peptides, spanning more than a century. The journal Antibiotics did a 2024 special issue titled The Century-Long Journey of Peptide-Based Drugs, that dove into the history from an antimicrobial perspective, noting that the first insulin injection happened in 1922. Even with that rich history, there isn't much high-quality evidence in humans for hair and scalp application, especially not topical, let alone liposomal, which is what the Blueprint hair products use to increase absorption rates. It's important to know what the specific claims are before evaluating the shampoo and serum. I pulled the following relevant claims from the Blueprint Frequently Asked Questions website. There were more claims, but I ignored the ones that use waffly language like improves hair quality and things like that, which was most of the claims. They claim that some users report differences in the appearance of gray hair, but more research is needed. Using the products for 6 to 9 months results in fuller, thicker-looking strands and reduced dryness, flakiness, and irritation. Both the peptide serum and peptide shampoo are free of drugs, hormones, SLS, parabens, gluten, sulfates, animal testing, carcinogens, and fragrance. And those with a history of skin cancer on the scalp should not use the product. We'll come back and evaluate these claims at the end. Here I'll list the ingredients for each bottle separately, since they're similar but different, and then I'll drill into the research for each ingredient in the next section. It's worth noting that Blueprint is not disclosing the amounts of ingredients, which was a bit surprising for me because the brand has been built on transparency until now. They publish COAs and amounts for all of their supplements. They do publish COAs for these products too, but they're only for contaminants, not ingredients. That means we're in the position of needing to trust Blueprint, which is something Brian has famously and repeatedly warned everyone not to do with companies. I reached out to Blueprint support to see if they would let us know about the amounts, and I got this response. Quote, While we share the full list of peptides included in the shampoo and serum, we do not disclose the specific amounts of each ingredient as this is part of our proprietary formulation. The bottles share most of their peptides, so this section will look at them together. Then there will be 2 more sections to cover the remaining peptides. First up we have EGF, which is Epidermal Growth Factor. It's a popular peptide with decades of research behind it, starting in the 1950s. It's found throughout our bodies and food, as well as other anti-hair loss and hair growth products. A 2021 systematic review of 49 articles found that EGF is effective at regenerating wounded skin and inverting skin aging. However, they also noted that only 15 of those studies were randomized and controlled, and they found the positive effect was better when it was injected than applied topically, so they were wary about claiming its efficacy as established. They also noted that penetration may be improved by chemical modification with lipophilic molecules, which is what Blueprint claimed to be using with their nanoliposome delivery system. However, it's not all good news on EGF. One study found that serum EGF correlated with alopecia areata, which is an autoimmune disorder that causes bald patches to appear. An older study on sheep showed that high levels of EGF caused wool to stop growing and fall out, as well as rupturing of blood vessels in the dermis. So the claim that Brian Johnson makes that these products contain 8 biomimetic peptides, more than any other product, and in the highest concentrations, is not necessarily a good thing. It would be good to know what the amounts are so we can assess risk. There's a lot of research about thymosin beta-4 confirming its ability to enhance wound healing amongst other things. An article in the European Journal of Dermatology notes that it's effective for accelerated healing and tissue repair, and that it's safe even in frail people. They say, thymosin beta-4 has, in the last 20 plus years, showed consistent strong effects on promoting tissue repair and regeneration in many diverse organs and in various preclinical models of tissue injury. One small study found that it improved seborrheic dermatitis more than ketoconazole and improved the homeostasis and composition of the scalp microbiota and flora. There is also mechanistic evidence of its effects on hair growth and angiogenesis, which also describes the hair follicle as an important mini-organ of the skin, consisting of 9 distinctive epidermal layers with this useful diagram. Human growth hormone has a long history of use, but usually isn't used topically because of very poor absorption. However, delivery methods like liposomes have been shown to enhance absorption. A 2023 study showed that topical HGH with an absorption aid significantly improved wound healing and reduced scarring. At high concentrations, like 500 nanograms per milliliter of HGH, IGF-1 mRNA expression is downregulated, while low concentrations, like 5 nanograms per milliliter, caused IGF-1 upregulation, so it's very important to get the right dose. Vascular endothelial growth factor is an interesting choice here, because a lot of the research on it is about how cancer tumors use it to give themselves an advantage, and its role in vision loss. A quote is, "Targeting VEGF and associated pathways has prevented blindness in millions of patients with eye disease and increased survival and lifespan for patients suffering from a number of different cancer types." It's common for cancers to adapt in those kinds of ways, and doesn't necessarily mean that using topical VEGF is a bad thing. Obviously, we don't want cancers to grow, but we do want healthy cells to grow. I'm more concerned about its effects on eye disease, especially given that parts of it would migrate to the eyes from the scalp and hair while using the shampoo in the shower. The suppression of VEGF is a common way to treat vision loss, as seen in this quote from a 2019 review of 16 trials. Participants treated with any anti-VEGF agent featured in these trials more often gained or maintained visual acuity at 1 year and less often lost visual acuity compared with participants who received no anti-VEGF agent. Copper tripeptide 1, or GHK, promotes skin remodeling, wound healing, and regeneration. It also stimulates blood vessel and nerve outgrowth and increases collagen and elastin. GHK is also anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory, restores chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD fibroblasts, and it has anti-aging properties. I've used a GHK serum before on my face. It was too expensive to continue using, which is a shame because my skin was really responding to it, so I'm a fan of this ingredient. That's all of the shared peptides, so now we're up to the ones that are only in the serum. First we have stem cell factor, which is also known as mast cell growth factor, KIT ligand, and steal factor. There is research confirming it has a role in melanogenesis, which is the process that produces melanin, which darkens skin and hair. SCF is similar to VEGF in that it is upregulated in cancer cells, in this case particularly mast cell tumors in cats and dogs. Again, that doesn't mean that applying it topically would cause cancer, but it's worth being aware of. Platelet-derived growth factor is involved in the maintenance of connective tissue, but elevated levels are found in the skin and lungs of people suffering from scleroderma, systemic sclerosis, and it's involved in the progression of melanoma. Topical application has been found to enhance wound healing, leading to it being applied to wound dressings, though that finding has been inconsistent, and it may induce and maintain hair follicles anagen phase in mice. Higher concentrations of PDGF receptors are found in chronic skin wounds and psoriasis, and low levels of PDGF correlate with metabolic syndrome, potentially explaining why psoriasis and metabolic syndrome often occur together. There's little to no direct evidence for topical follistatin affecting scalp or hair in humans. There are some studies in mice that suggest it might increase the cycle rate of hair follicles, which would more closely match the rate of younger mice. But those mice are genetically modified to suppress their follistatin production, so it's hard to know what the effect could be in humans. It's also not necessarily the case that increasing cell turnover in aging people would be good for their scalp or overall health, and that line of thinking could be a good example of a common logical fallacy in longevity research. There might be good reasons for hair cell turnover slowing with age. Our bodies are complex and full of mechanisms that maintain homeostasis, so making one specific thing more youthful can have unexpected effects. This line of reasoning ties in with the antagonistic pleiotropy hypothesis. Now we're up to the shampoo-only peptides. First up we have basic fibroblast growth factor. It's been seen to increase hair follicle size, hair shaft length, and even increase pigmentation via melanin synthesis and increase proliferation of hair follicle stem cells in mice and human cells. That might be a double-edged sword, which is a recurring theme with these growth factors, because it may make melanoma more common when combined with UVB radiation, which is abundant in sunlight. Acidic fibroblast growth factor is similar to bFGF and promotes the anagen growth phase of hair follicles when injected into mice, but may also slow down hair growth over time, according to a mouse study that found, quote, follicles in bFGF-treated areas appeared able to form and develop normally, but at a much slower rate. This suppressed state continued until the influence of exogenous FGF was removed. There isn't as much research for aFGF as bFGF, especially for topical use, so it's hard to say anything conclusive about it. Vasoactive intestinal peptide may contribute to maintaining the immune privilege of hair cells to protect them from autoimmune diseases, and it may stimulate hair pigmentation. A quote is, VIP treatment significantly promoted intrafollicular melanin production in situ and stimulated melanogenesis. Now I'll go over the other ingredients. Even though the products are mostly about the peptides, there are other active ingredients worth knowing about and considering. Obviously, they both have water, and that's good. Pentylene Glycol is a common humectant, a moisture retainer, in cosmetics. It's usually safe, but it does cause allergic reactions in a small number of people, which has caused some researchers to suggest it is an adult allergen. If you do get a skin reaction from these products, this could be why. Glycerin is another common humectant, and it's considered safe. No worries here. Curcumin is a popular supplement derived from turmeric. It's also effective for reducing inflammation when applied to the skin, and being encased in liposomes should improve its absorption, which is typically not very good. Tetrahydrocurcumin is a more bioavailable and stable version of curcumin. I like these ingredients. Panthenol is a derivative of vitamin B5, pantothenic acid, and when it's absorbed by the body it becomes vitamin B5 again. It can help with inflammation and eczema. Rates of allergic reactions are uncommon at around 1.2%, but that's enough to be aware of. Caffeine is another good choice because it improves circulation, protects cells against UV radiation, and slows down skin photoaging. The Blueprint website claims that it helps maintain scalp hydration and overall scalp comfort. Adenosine has been shown to improve hair thickness in Japanese and Caucasian men and women with pattern baldness, with no recorded side effects. This is a great ingredient. Niacinamide has become popular in skin products, and there's some evidence it can help increase hair fullness, but there's also research showing that it inhibits hair growth. So I'm not sure about this one. Do you want fuller hair that also grows more slowly? Arginine has been seen to enhance wound healing in skin, but there isn't much research relating to hair or scalp in humans. I found one research paper published by L'Oreal that linked arginine to hair elongation, but obviously it's in their interest to make that finding, so it should be taken with a grain of salt. Lecithin is commonly used to form liposomes, which are basically blobs of fat similar to cell membranes that encase active ingredients and protect them from being broken down on their way to cells. As you can see in this image, liposomes have a hydrophilic outer surface layer, a hydrophobic inner surface layer, and a core, which is where the real ingredient to be absorbed is. 3,0-ethyl ascorbic acid is also known as vitamin C ethyl. It's commonly used as a skin lightener, and there is research hypothesizing that vitamin C in the diet is useful for hair, but everything I could find was in vitro or theoretical, so there appears to be a lack of high-quality evidence for this one despite its popularity, which was surprising for me. Polysorbate 60, or polyoxyethylene 20-sorbitan monostearate, is an emulsifier, which means it improves the consistency between oil and water-based ingredients. It's widely used and considered safe. Sodium citrate is used as a pH adjuster, chelating agent, fragrance, and buffering agent. It is generally considered safe, but its use as a fragrance may contradict the claim from Blueprint that there are no added fragrances. To be fair though, it is such a common ingredient and probably isn't what they think of when they say an added fragrance. Now we're up to the serum-only ingredients, and we start with a tongue twister. Hydroxyethyl acrylate / sodium acryloyl methyl taurate copolymer has limited evidence as a stabilizer and may improve absorption of minoxidil, so it's an interesting choice for the fourth highest non-peptide ingredient in the serum. Next we have DNA or PDRN, which is polydeoxyribonucleotide, which can improve wound healing, skin aging, acne scars, and hair loss, with one study concluding that, quote, PDRN effectively inhibits the aging of keratinocytes cells by upregulating SIRT1 expression and reducing nuclear autophagy when exposed to UVB or H2O2-induced senescence, including in mice skin. Nicotinamide Mononucleotide, or NMN, is one of the most popular and controversial longevity supplements, and has more recently been studied for its effects on scalp and hair. There is promising preliminary evidence that it promotes hair growth and reduces scalp inflammation, especially when combined with other agents and low-level laser therapy. Ketoglutaric acid, also known as alpha-ketoglutarate or AKG, is another popular supplement that's been shown to increase lifespan and health span in mice, including female mice, which isn't that common. There is also limited evidence that it may improve hair growth by increasing autophagy, but this is really preliminary, non-human evidence. Salicylic acid, along with menthol and dexpanthenol, have been shown to improve hair thickness, reduce itchiness, and reduce hair loss in people in Korea, and in a double-blind randomized placebo-controlled study that also tested panthenol and niacinamide, so these are good additions. Thioctic acid is also commonly known as ALA, or alpha-lipoic acid. It occurs naturally in foods like spinach, broccoli, flax seeds, chia seeds, and organ meats. There isn't much research about its effects on scalp and hair, but there is one study that found it reduced scalp inflammation and therefore could help with hair loss and thinning when combined with carnitine and saw palmetto extract. The research is lacking on 1,2-hexanediol, but it is commonly used in hair products as a preservative to increase shelf life and as a humectant. Despite the lack of formal research, it seems to have a good reputation as a skincare ingredient with only a slight risk of clogging pores. Acetyl cysteine, also known as N-acetyl L-cysteine or NAC, is another popular supplement in the longevity space, often paired with glycine in a combination referred to as Glynac. There is one research article in the QJM showing it improves hair density and quality with no reported side effects, but there are no details about the methodology in the online PDF, so I don't know whether it was used topically or orally or anything else about the study. Speaking of pairing it with glycine, the next ingredient is glycine. Similar to NAC, glycine has very little evidence for topical use on scalp or hair. It may be a promising candidate given that it may work to slightly reduce damage from UVA radiation, but more research is needed. P-Anisic acid is also known as draconic acid, which is a pretty cool name. It's a common preservative used in cosmetics, nothing too interesting apart from the name. The final ingredient for the serum is glutathione, which is another popular supplement, sometimes called the master antioxidant. Interestingly, there are studies showing it has a positive effect on oxidative stress in hair follicles, and that hair growth is impaired when glutathione is reduced. Now we're starting with the shampoo-only ingredients. We have 4 ingredients collectively known as alkyl glucosides, and because they're surfactants, they're also emulsifiers. They perform the same function as the infamous sodium lauryl sulfate SLS, but they're less irritating. They all have a decent safety profile and are at most mildly irritating. One exception is lauryl glucoside, which is safe, but one study showed that it increased hair friction and rigidity, and was inferior to the other surfactants that were tested, so it's a bit puzzling that it's the first ingredient in the shampoo behind water. Disodium lauryl sulfosuccinate, or DLS, as the name suggests, is similar to SLS. It is equally as foaming, but unlike SLS, it's not a sulfate, making it milder than its irritating molecular cousin. Sodium cocoyl apple amino acids are the same. Laurimodopropyl betaine, LAPB, is similar to DLS, since it's a non-sulfate surfactant. However, there is evidence that it inflames scalp dermatitis in some people, and a systematic review found that another form of betaine causes eczema lesions, itching, and burning sensations in 7% of people, so this is a questionable choice, especially given that there are already milder ingredients in the formulation that perform the same function. Glycol Distearate is basically used to give cosmetics iridescence. Polyquaternium-10 adds a thin film to the surface of hair, which can make it appear glossy and conditioned. It can also cause other ingredients to stay in the hair longer, as one study showed with hyaluronic acid. Silk amino acids are similar to polyquaternium-10 in that they add a thin film, but silk amino acids may also protect against UV damage and have antioxidant, antimicrobial, and anti-tyrosinase activity. Their low molecular weight also gives them good absorption into hair strands and skin cells. This seems like a good ingredient. Tetrasodium glutamate diacetate is also known as glutamic acid diacetate, or GLDA, and it's a chelating agent, which means it binds to metals to prevent oxidation. Glutamic acid has been shown to promote hair growth in mice, but other variants make wounds heal more slowly, so it's hard to know what the overall effect of this ingredient would be. Mentha arvensis, also known as wild mint or corn mint oil, is an ingredient in mosquito repellents and herbal medicine for things like stomach aches and gum health. Herbal hair oils in general have been seen to have good effects on hair growth and scalp inflammation, and while there isn't a lot of research on this particular one in scalp or hair, this oil consists of up to 93.7% menthol, so it can be expected to also have the same benefits of menthol I mentioned earlier in the video. Trehalose may increase proliferation and decrease cell death in hair cells when exposed to oxidative stress, and protect against skin damage. In a comprehensive review from 2024, it has been seen to work in combination with hyaluronic acid to enhance skin quality and mitigate inflammation, leading the researchers to conclude that, quote, The implications of these findings are profound for the future of anti-aging therapeutics in aesthetic medicine, suggesting that the integration of hyaluronic acid and trehalose holds promise for revolutionary advancements in preserving skin vitality and health. Glycerol caprolate and Hexylene glycol are preservatives and moisturizers. Glycerol caprolate seems safe in low concentrations, but hexylene glycol has been seen to cause an allergic reaction in 2.8% of people in a study involving 823 eczema patients. Sodium chloride or table salt seems like a strange choice here because it's been seen to correlate with immune responses causing atopic dermatitis or atopic eczema, with researchers noting that, quote, the skin of patients suffering from atopic dermatitis contained elevated sodium compared to non-lesional atopic and healthy skin. It's usually added to cosmetics as a thickener. Phenoxyethanol is a stabilizer that is generally regarded as safe for adults by regulatory authorities at 1% concentration and has been seen to reduce skin acne in a pilot study. However, there is evidence that it may disrupt the endocrine system, resulting in longer pregnancies, differences in hormone levels in children, and lower neurocognitive performance in 6-year-olds, according to data analyzed from the Pelagi cohort study, which is a really cool ongoing study on 3,421 women and their children in France that has already contributed a wealth of data about the effects of pesticides, solvents, and pollutants. The International Journal of Epidemiology published a great overview of the study called Cohort Profile, the Pelagi Mother-Child Cohort that I recommend checking out. Limonene comes from citrus peels and has been associated with a variety of potential health benefits to skin and hair, including protecting against UV damage by boosting antioxidant defense systems in the body, inhibiting pro-inflammatory cytokines and itching from eczema in mice, and improvements to hair loss in rats. There are a lot of studies about its good effects, but most of them are in non-humans. It's regarded as safe in cosmetics, though there is potential for skin irritation. Now that we know the evidence, let's look again at the de-waffled claims. The first claim is, some users report differences in the appearance of grey hair, but more research is needed. I almost didn't include this, since it's a bit hard to decipher. Does a difference in the appearance of grey hair mean less grey hair, or that it's still grey but looks different somehow, like softer or more glossy? Ultimately, I included it as a measure because anytime you mention even a small chance of grey hair reversal in a product, it will fly off the shelves. People going grey really want to believe that something might work, and when coupled with the claim that you can't expect to see benefits from a product for 4 months, 6 months, 9 months or more, it means you can make a lot of money from people before they realize it's not working for them. A quick look at popular anti-grey companies tells you everything you need to know about this. They get terrible ratings on independent websites like Trustpilot or Scam Detector, but it's all 5 out of 5s on their own websites. Having said that, I appreciate how careful Blueprint have been with their claim here, especially given the fact that at least 2 of the peptides have been shown to increase hair pigmentation, so they could have made a bigger claim than they have, and instead they're waiting. The next claim is that using the products for 6 to 9 months results in fuller, thicker looking strands and reduced dryness, flakiness, and irritation. These claims are all supported by evidence for some of the ingredients. However, there are also some ingredients that will cause those problems, so it's hard to say what the ultimate outcome will be. Will the anti-inflammatory ingredients win against the inflammatory ones? That's not clear to me. I think what is clear is that some of the ingredients are odd choices and introduce unnecessary risk of irritation, so it'll be interesting to see what people say about it when it's been in the wild for longer. The next claim is that the peptide serum and peptide shampoo are free of drugs, hormones, SLS, parabens, gluten, sulfates, animal testing, carcinogens, and fragrance. These claims are true with some caveats. While the Blueprint products in their final form may not have been tested on animals, most or all of the ingredients have been. There are also some fragrances, and while they're not exactly carcinogens, some of the peptides have the risk of association with cancer, which leads on to the next claim, which is those with a history of skin cancer on the scalp should not use these products. This suggests to me that the company knows about that association I just mentioned, so they're trying to use very precise language when they say there are no carcinogens. It's good that they're pointing this out, but it seems too important to be hidden away in an FAQ. It would be more responsible to disclose this on the product pages themselves. So, should you buy them? If you made it all the way to here, firstly you should be congratulated, and secondly, you probably want to know whether the potential benefits outweigh the potential costs. Honestly, this is a hard one. Even in the longevity and health span space, where it's common to take on some degree of risk, introducing so many peptides in undisclosed amounts and in a relatively untested delivery mechanism is a lot to ask. Some of the ingredients in peptides have big potential upsides, but are also entirely untested in this format, aside from any private testing that Blueprint has done, which I don't see any data on. Not knowing the amounts of the peptides is a problem because some serious side effects have been found at higher doses, and we don't know how close these formulations are to hitting those upper limits, and often we don't even know what those upper limits would be, especially when liposomal or low-level laser therapy delivery are factored in. While I was researching for this, which has taken me an entire month to do, Brian mentioned that the products sold out immediately on launch, so it's clear that there is a lot of trust being placed in Brian and Blueprint, and a lot of demand for products like these. I suspected that would be the case, which is why I didn't take any shortcuts on this research. I wanted to do my best to enable people to make informed decisions about these products. I would love to know what you think. Has this article changed your mind or made you more sure of your decision? Let me know, and don't forget to subscribe for future reviews.